My name's Emily Aronis, and this is my husband, Austin. And our daughter, Lana, is kind of off camera here. But we wanted to basically give you a little bit of background on our story. And on August 21st, 2014, we had taken our daughter to daycare early in the morning, and it was a daycare that we'd used since Lana was about 8 weeks old. And Austin had taken her around 7:30 that morning, and I had gone into work pretty early for an early morning meeting. And on that morning, I didn't realize that our lives would completely change in a matter of a couple of hours. By about 9 o'clock, I was finishing up our meeting with our client, and somebody came into our boardroom at work and said that my husband was in the lobby. Austin was standing at the front desk, and he had tears just streaming down his face, and he's not much of an emotional person, so I was kind of shocked to see that. And I looked at him and I said, "What's going on?" And he had told me he could barely get the words out of his mouth, but all he could say was Lana, daycare, lawnmower, and ambulance. We got in the car, and we were probably speeding down the highway, probably going a little faster than we should have, but we were determined to get to St. Francis. And I couldn't really understand what had happened, so I made a point to call our daycare provider, and I assumed maybe she would give me a little bit more detail. And when I got a hold of her, I immediately just heard her sobbing on the phone and just almost hysterical. And I got to a point where I was actually calming her down, which I thought was kind of a weird place to be. And I said, "Just tell me what's going on." And it was kind of the same reaction: Lana, lawnmower, and on the way to the hospital. So I asked for clarification on what hospital she was headed to, and she had mentioned that it was St. Francis. And so I hung up the phone, and we rushed to St. Francis. When we walked into, I just call it a trauma bay, but in the ER area, we walked in there, and she was covered in a white sheet, and I swear her face was probably about as white as the sheet was, but she was in this weird, like, just calm state, and it was almost kind of eerie to the sense I was like, I just assumed it, she would have been screaming or bawling or something, but she was just so brave. And she was gripping this little monkey here, and it was a monkey that we'd never seen before, but it seemed to bring her just a little bit of comfort. And I think I've probably watched too many shows like Grey's Anatomy, but I started asking the nurses and doctors, how bad was it, where was the injury at, and they would just give me little pieces of information, and it was like, her left leg is injured. So then I would ask, well, how high up are we talking about? Because I assumed that there was probably a main artery or something in the leg. And so they would tell me it's, it goes up to just slightly above her knee. And they said it's pretty bad, and they said, most of it is down towards her calf and her ankle. And I remember looking at one of the nurses and going, well, can I just look at it real quick? And I've never seen a nurse move so quickly, but she turned around and was like, I don't think that's a good idea. And at that point, I started looking around the room, and I saw a group of doctors surrounded around kind of an x-ray that was up on the screen. And when I was watching them, I could just hear them kind of just talking. And I remember looking at one of the nurses asking, what are we waiting for? What's going on here? And they said they were waiting specifically for one of the orthopedic surgeons to get there. And so they said that they would be moving her to the pre-op room. So we were rushed up to the pre-op room, and after her first surgery, Dr. Dart came out, and he had asked us if we wanted to see pictures of Lana's injury. And our curiosity kind of got the best of us, and so he showed us the after pictures first. And the easiest way I can describe it is it almost looked kind of like a Frankenstein leg, because they had pins in there kind of pinning all of the bones back together in her ankle. And in most sense, it looked okay. I mean, it was cut up and had stitches on it and stuff like that, but she still had her toes and everything like that. So it kind of gave us a glimmer of hope. And then he showed us the before picture, and when we saw the before picture, it kind of set in for us how bad it was. And I remember at one point looking at an x-ray of her leg, and you could see where the bones were supposed to be, but there was a lot of blurriness kind of towards the calf and her ankle. And I remember asking one of the nurses what was that blurriness on there, and they had told us in a nice way that basically it was just her muscle and her tissue hanging off of her leg, that they were going to have to figure out how to piece it back together. And I remember when Dr. Dart showed us the before picture, it just looked like a grizzly bear had gotten a hold of her leg, and it was literally just ripped to shreds. And I remember asking him, how did he make that back to a leg? And somehow he figured it out. But he described to us that there are 3 main blood vessels, I think, that run to the foot, and the lawnmower had severed 2 of them. There's a nerve that runs down to the foot that allows it to have flexion in it, and that nerve had been severed multiple times, and there were pieces of it that were missing. So basically the nerve was no longer intact, but he felt like there was possibly a chance that they could, somehow figure out how to pull it back together. And he also mentioned that her growth plate in her ankle was pretty much destroyed. And he said it could go a couple different ways. She could either keep her leg, but she'd have to have bone lengthening surgeries done for the years to come. Or there was a chance that she'd have to become an amputee, possibly a signs amputee, or she could become above the knee. And the biggest thing that they were most concerned about was the infection from the lawnmower. And so he made the hard decision to send her to Children's Mercy overnight. And we spent the next 21 days in the hospital. She ended up going through 7 surgeries, 3 blood transfusions, and all sorts of antibiotics. I couldn't even tell you the names of the antibiotics that she was on, but there was probably a list of about 4 or 5 pages of antibiotics that she was on. She was on infusions every couple of hours, I think, and that was probably the worst part of it, is the pain medicine and the antibiotics, because it really messed with her digestive system and everything else. She hated it. And but what it all comes down to is that we just had incredible first responders, doctors, nurses, that made it possible for her to get through all of those tough times. And when all was said and done, after all the surgeries and everything like that, they ended up having to do an amputation just slightly above her ankle. And so now she is a below the knee amputee. And for us, we'd never experienced that before, so we didn't know what her mobility was going to be like, if she was going to be able to dance, run, all of that, and keep up with kids. And now seeing her, she's just like any other kid. She is a little spitfire. She competes in running, she does gymnastics, she swims, you name the sport, and she's willing to go out there and try it. I think this experience has given her more confidence in herself in some strange way, but there'll be kids that will come up to her and are curious about her prosthetic, and Lana will actually sit down with them, explain to them, this is my prosthetic, I got ran over by a lawnmower, it's not a big deal, and then she'll just take her leg off and hand it to the kids and show them, this is how it works. So it was pretty funny to watch, and but for them, it was like just seeing her as a kid. That's cool that she can do that, how can I do that for myself too? So we just truthfully just want to say we are just so grateful for all of the paramedics, the first responders, the doctors, the nurses, for helping us through one of the worst days of our life, and helping us to see that just the little things, such as just caring, holding a child for the first time when the parents couldn't be there, that in and of itself is something that goes a long way in the personal care of somebody that's injured. But we're just very, very thankful and grateful that all of you were there.
Well, I think she stole the show. I'm not sure I can top that. I'll just to say what she said. We just want to give our utmost gratitude and thanks to Chris and Audrey for everything they did. I am so appreciative for who they are and what they did for my daughter. There's not words in the dictionary to describe it, and we are forever grateful to them and all paramedics for that matter. They go out and the first ones who have to answer the call. I truly believe they have the hardest job from a medical standpoint. They have to go out, answer the call, and be those two people who can stabilize a patient, whether it's from an injury from a lawnmower or if it's from a drowning or a heart attack, whatever the case might be. They have to stabilize a patient and do as best as they possibly can. And I know they do to get them to the hospital and to surgery or whatever the next steps may be. And that in itself is truly amazing. They are godsends on this earth, and they make a true difference in this life for others, my daughter and others, and I couldn't be happier for them. And not only did they help save my daughter's life, they saved more lives. Specifically in our family, myself, my wife, and probably our extended family, because if things didn't work out the way they did, I mean, I don't know that I would be able to come back from what could have happened, and I think my wife probably agrees with that. So I will be forever grateful for them, and just truly am thankful. So.
I think too, one of the things that kind of blows our mind when we look back on it, when we were talking with them earlier, this was, I believe, at the beginning of their shift. So not only did they handle that situation right out of the gate, but when they dropped her off at the ER, they had to go right back out and service another call shortly after. So I know all of you probably understand that that's just part of the job, but I'm not sure how you can handle that, and we're just incredibly grateful for all of what you guys do. I'm sure you guys do not hear thank you quite enough, but from our family to yours, we are just so thankful for everything you've done.